Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our latest panel session, looking at smart devices, the ultimate super aggregators of video services. There's obviously a question mark after that because otherwise we wouldn't really have a panel session or anything to talk about. Let me introduce the panel to you. Ajay Anand is the CEO of NORIGIN Media, who are kindly sponsoring this session. Bjarne Andre Mikkelbust is head of distribution at the Norwegian public broadcaster NRK. At Danmarks Radio, Christian Vanek is head of development for streaming services. And we also have Stuart Jones, who's head of product for AVOD for ITV. I'm going to ask you all quickly in about 30 seconds to just tell everyone who you are and what you do. So I'll start with you Ajay, if you may.
Thank you for that, Julian, and it's lovely to see you all, Stuart, Bjarne, and Christian. My name's Ajay. I'm the CEO here at NORIGIN Media. We're a Norwegian company. We've been in the hosting of video business for 15, 20 years, and we work on a lot of development projects with large broadcasters and operators. We're not working with NRK, ITV, or DR at this point in time, but hopefully soon enough.
Oh, you never know by the end of the session. Christian, tell us about your work at Danmarks Radio.
Sure, nice to be here. My name is Christian Vanek, and I'm the head of development for streaming services at DR. Most relevant today, our video streaming service, DR TV, which is currently the biggest Danish streaming service. Some pretty much on the delivery side of things, heading up the teams and suppliers building DR TV.
Yeah, that's good. Stuart, tell us about your work at ITV.
Yeah, so I'm Stu Jones. I'm head of the customer experience product management team, ITV, for our owned and operated platform. So we service something in the region of around 30 million people a year, and it's a UK dominant based business, and the specialism is in the AVOD market currently for myself.
Okay, and finally, Bjarne at NRK.
Yes, hello, good to see you all. I'm Bjarne. I've been working at NRK, Norwegian public broadcaster, for 25 years now, and the last years I've been working as head of distribution. So I'm in charge of our distribution agreements, also not only the more traditional networks, but also the new network and streaming services all over.
Okay, let's start with you, Bjarne, as we open this out a little bit. The important devices here. Well, smart TVs. We were talking about those, as you might expect, in our last session. Operator set-top boxes. Well, that makes sense as well. But there's others as well. There's the likes of Roku and Apple TV. I think is particularly big in the Nordic market. Where do you target your attentions to?
Absolutely, Julian. And in Norway, and I think also especially in the Nordics, Apple TV is a very big player. I see that almost 40–50% of our traffic on NRK TV, which is our streaming app, is actually terminated on an Apple TV box. When it comes to smart TV, it's also more and more popular, and we also now see the operator setup boxes are also moving. Norway is a country where people have setup boxes because we almost don't have any free-to-air services in Norway. It's only NRK, so many have an operator and have a setup box. And the new types of setup boxes running Android TV are perfect actually for us, and it runs our applications, and we see a pickup of usage now on those boxes.
Christian, I guess it'll be a fairly similar picture to what's happening across the way in Norway. Is there anything else? It's interesting because Bjarne's answer with regards to set-top boxes. I kind of remember a time when Scandinavian cable, you just plugged it into your analog TV set, and away you went. It's kind of back to the future almost, isn't it, with smart TVs coming in?
It sure is, and it's a huge potential for us, and we are very eager to have a presence on the users' smart TV in their living room. other than that, it's fairly similar to what you just described, Bjarne. Apple TV is big in Denmark alongside Chromecast, and then of course the various OSs for the different manufacturers that we try to have a presence on as well. And of course,
I'm intrigued actually, Christian. I'm intrigued as to why Apple TV has got such a foothold in the Nordic market. I have one downstairs here, but that's it feels pretty much a minority sport sometimes in the UK.
So I think it's a question of Apple having a big presence in Denmark. So they have a huge sale of iPhones here, so that brings people into the Apple ecosystem, and then it's a short leap to get the Apple TV box as well. So it sort of ties into an ecosystem that they're establishing in their homes. So I think that's why we're seeing the.
I feel like bringing up Nokia mobile phones actually, but I better not, because who knows what could have happened there. Stuart, from the UK perspective, what are you? Would you agree that it's Apple not so much here, and it's other platforms, perhaps the set-top boxes from Sky and Virgin, who I think you've done announced an agreement with today on integrating ITV Hub a little bit deeper into their set-tops, amongst other things in the deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it certainly is it's a really important deal for us as well, and it shows the strength and partnership that we have with them as well. I think it's fascinating listening to the conversation talking around the use of Apple TV and the kind of mass market over there. I mean, it's such a small percentage for us, and I'm not entirely sure why that would, why it would be different, but we see a huge amount of traffic from our connected televisions going through dongles. Amazon Fire TV really does kind of have a huge influence on the UK market, and that reflects in our data as well to support the fact that these are where a big percentage of customers are actually using that platform to access our owned and operated services as well. And so I think it's interesting, isn't it, to think about why that potentially could be. And for us, it is trying to make sure that we target the biggest platforms first. So it could be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. You always target those platforms first, therefore you're always trying to attract people onto those platforms as well. But I mean, just on Apple TV, I'm an Apple TV user myself, and it's a great user interface and experience as well. And if the traffic reflected the user experience, I think it would be quite different.
And does this mean you sometimes have to make some hard choices about where you're putting the development? In the previous panel I was in, it was alluded to the problem of smart TV manufacturers smart TV manufacturers generally want you to go and buy the next TV. So they might not be quite so keen on supporting their platform as you would be in order to maintain your relationship with your viewers. Well,
this is it. I mean, there's obviously two relationships that we need to try and maintain. There's one with the vendor, there was one with the customer. And I think, we've not preferenced a vendor because of necessarily the relationship with the vendor. It's just that the data is showing us where to put our focus. So in many respects, the decision around prioritization is relatively simple based on the information that we're getting back about usage. I think the danger that you could easily fall into, though, is just taking a big percentage of your user base and focusing on those platforms, and then neglecting actually some of the platforms where some of the passionate users are as well. And there's plenty of cases for that. So I think the real skill and art is trying to make sure that we don't become a kind of only servicing the 3 or 4 platforms. We have many that we service, and we try to build infrastructure and architecture that allows us to scale across all of these platforms simultaneously. Is that,
do you think, particularly important for a public service broadcaster? Yeah. ITV is a public service broadcaster after all, as are friends from Scandinavia.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's absolutely important to do. Luckily, we're never really in a position of needing to sort of make those hard decisions. And we obviously think about ourselves as a public service broadcaster all the time, but the way that we've built the foundations that we've got in place, it's never we never have to worry too much about it, because we're always trying to service everybody simultaneously, given that we are very UK focused and we've got that breadth of the UK service as well. Yeah,
Ajay, you must have a pretty good overview of this, actually, sort of selling your services across to a variety of platforms. From where you stand, do you think that smart TVs will usurp the the set-top box and become the place of the super aggregator? Or will, as we've seen demonstrated in the Nordic market, still have Apple TV there and other devices elsewhere across the continent?
I think the super aggregators are any device that's going to sell well, whether it's an Apple TV box in the Nordics or it's a Roku device in France, right? So I don't think we define a generic super aggregator in terms of a device in itself. The consumer decides that. In terms of, to answer the previous question alongside this, the Nordics has always been digitally forward and savvy, I can say. The Apple TV, for obvious reasons, is a fantastic device, consumer-friendly extremely, but it's also very costly for the average consumer when you look at it from a global perspective, and that's why.
Is it as costly? I'm interested. It's obviously more costly to buy as a consumer. Is it more costly to develop for when compared to Android or perhaps RDK, for example?
No, we would say it's pretty much the same. And then there are common technologies. A company like us, of course, we look at common technologies that serve the purpose of not just Apple, but Android as well as Samsung and LG together at one go, because somebody wants to invest in Apple TV at one point in time. But, you know, as much as Apple TV is large in the Nordics, so is Android. As Bjarne said, the boxes are increasing like crazy. And that has made Android quite popular. The higher end of smart TVs like Sony, etc., have Android as well on it. So it makes a lot of sense to the Nordic consumer that costly, good, digitally forward devices which use Android, whether it be a set-top box or a Sony smart TV, is supported. And of course, a large percentage it's a very Apple-friendly market. But then again, you're talking about Android and Apple, which are very, very unique native operating systems.
Because you have got the TV manufacturers who are going off, and whilst I guess there's things which they have in common, whatever the label is, simply because of the internationally agreed standards. But you do have, you know, LG promoting a platform, Samsung promoting a platform, and others too, who you know, you kind of get the impression they fancy themselves as being super aggregators, even over and above some of the pay TV operators out there.
And within the segment of smart TVs, LG and Samsung have a strong position, and we need to respect these device manufacturers for what they are, because the consumers do respect them enough to buy these devices, right? But having said that, all the smart TV devices support common web technologies. There are technologies evolving at a faster pace than we think. We can develop one application that works on all. There are pros and cons for this, but you know, it depends on how much money you've got or how much tax the consumer pays the government, so that can fund the apps back to themselves.
How I just want to, in terms of, you know, we've mentioned the big players, the Samsungs, the Androids, the Apples, and there's many more manufacturers as out there, particularly on the TV display side of things. When it comes to developing an app, or more to the point, maintaining an app, you know, how long do you continue to do that for? You know, people like me, I'm perfectly happy to keep my television set for 12 years, which I think was the length of life of the last one, during which time I got rid of through countless set-top boxes underneath. Other people will be more in line with the regular replacement cycle, which is, I think, can be about 7 years in some instances now.
I can comment on that, Julian.
Yeah, please do, Bjarne.
That's okay, because we are in a process actually now on putting down some of our oldest applications on smart TVs, but also on set-top boxes. Set-top boxes is no problem because they are on their way out. But these smart TV applications are now over 5 years old. And our problem is that Samsung and someone, let's just not say only Samsung, but the TV manufacturers stop actually supporting their television sets with updates after 5 years. Some of them don't do that. And that also means that we have problem with updating our app again on those television sets. It's security issues, but it's also functionality that we try to keep the same on every platform, basically. So we actually decided now to take off and shut down some of the oldest apps. And yes, we do get some telephones from users that still are using those apps and say that my television is just like 6 years old and it's working perfectly, but why can't we use the application again? We have to go through and try to explain that for them. The majority of people actually understand also that there is an issue of being able to maintain applications after 5-6 years. It's costly, that's one thing, and you want to focus on the new stuff that we want to do, but it's also security issues when it comes to updates, and it's also liability issues and other issues around it. That means that we have to take them down at some point. It could be 5 years, it could be 6-7 years, but in our case, because of the TV, some of the TV vendors don't support their own sets after 5 years. We have decided to take them down on some sets after 5 years. So there is an issue with the legacy here, Julian, absolutely.
Yeah, Stuart, I seem to remember, I'm trying to remember what the answer was. A few years ago, I remember asking somebody at the BBC how many different versions of the iPlayer they'd deployed, but across, single manufacturers, tweaks here, tweaks there. Yeah. I wonder, dare I ask a similar question of you? Well, it's a bit mean to ask it off on the hoof.
No, not at all. No, it's actually a really difficult one to answer, purely because there's variations of application with inside players as well. So it kind of, we've got a variation of a player that supports a certain video format, but then another variation of a player which supports another video format. And it might be that, I'm just going to use this as an example, it might not be accurate, but an LG 2017 has a different variation of the app than an LG TV of 2021. And it's kind of, again, it's kind of, we maintain and manage them. You have to just at some point look at it. iOS is a good example where we're often having to try and look at some of the lower ended supported phones and talk about how we can actually then try and reduce that down. And so it does become quite a, not so much a challenge, it's the difficult decision to say, let's start deprecating this version of this application on this platform now, purely because we haven't got the support figures to try and support what it is that we're trying to do on there as well. And ultimately, we don't want the experience to degrade to such an extent as well. So if we're seeing latency on a certain platform, we've got to make a switch, right? So these are the tough decisions. The art is trying to communicate it outwards and explain to the customer why.
Yeah, Christian, would more shared standards help improve this a little bit, not just past TV sets, which are maybe starting to gather dust a bit in the bedroom, but also going forward? Yeah.
I mean, we've left the native app strategy for smart TVs, and we're going with an HBB TV app, and the support for that standard is becoming increasingly strong across the manufacturers. So we're managing to deliver one app for all the main manufacturers of smart TVs, and it is, as Ajay alluded to before, with the trade-off in terms of functionality and performance, but it is a cost-efficient way for us to deliver the app across manufacturers, and it becomes, you need to be aware of not just looking for the lowest common denominator for the TVs, but still we're managing to have very few versions of that across the TVs, and like you guys are doing at NRK, we will de-support the older versions of that probably at the end of the year to make sure that we have as few versions to support as possible. And I will say that there is a growing understanding for that among the consumers, that there is an understanding that is an oversized smartphone that you have in your living room at home, and you need to update it the same way that you do your phone. And it has been a realization for a lot of users, but I think we are getting there in the understanding in the market that it is again an oversized iPhone that you need to update like your other devices.
I remember I went to a press conference at the BBC many years ago when they informed me that they were never going to be switching off real audio, and they would continue with that particular stream like forever, which is fantastic news. I'd like to talk a little bit about the kind of information that is maybe shared between operators, channels, and and platforms. Maybe starting off with user analytics. It might be a good one to focus on Stuart to start off with. I know you won't discuss the ins and outs of the deal with Virgin O2 that we mentioned earlier, but one would imagine that when you have a deal like that, you're going to be sharing more information than if you have the standard agreement to pop your app on a particular platform.
Yeah, data is always, it's something that I've been working in technology for 25 years. In the last 10 to 12 have been in product management, and the emphasis on data has grown and grown and grown. And with the advent of personalization and implementation of the likes of machine learning, they're really only applicable and effective if you've got the level of data to really work from. And so when we make these deals now, I think the idea is that we look much longer term than we do in the short term. It's not just about prominence. Prominence is a huge part, but it's also about the sharing of the information.
It's behind the scenes thing, isn't it? The visual thing you've seen. It's great. I can access all of these ITV dramas, but actually it's behind the scenes. You want to know how well those dramas are performing on particular platforms.
And that's it. And also, the kind of good relationships are the ones that want to know that two-way street. You tell us, we'll tell you, we'll find a way of forging this together. And today's deal aside, obviously, because the details of that are out in the public domain and very fresh and recent. But with other providers that we're working with, sometimes we've got to try and phrase the question in the right way to try and get the information. And it's not so much about people trying to hide or obfuscate the information. It's just that it's complicated to try and really answer very specific questions about specific platforms and moments in time. And we have to respect that. There's global companies that we're asking for very myopic information from. But I think the more we can share and be transparent about, you start building those strong relationships. And then when negotiations come back around again, because they ultimately do, we're in a position to be able to say, actually, here's where the value could be added and exchanged back and forth. And I think that, it's taken a while, in my experience, personally speaking, it's taken a while to get to that place where you understand the rationale behind the question being asked. And it's about the kind of relationship that you have. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. And that's the important part.
Christian, do you think you get the information that you want out of various platforms where DR sits? I guess you've got one less DTH platform now to worry about, now that Alenta is as one, which I guess will be of impact for as well.
It depends on the presence with our own apps on the various platforms. Of course, we have full insights into the user analytics. So it's a question of our collaboration with the operators and our presence typically on their set-top boxes. And I think again, as you said, Stuart, it's a matter of collaboration. And Denmark is a pretty small market, and we do have good partnerships with the operators, and having access to user analytics hasn't been an issue for us. We also have obligations the other way back to the rights holders in terms of consumption that we need to be able to answer for. So that has been fairly unproblematic. Of course, we don't have the same. I think that the discussion becomes interesting when it comes to more detailed analytics and questions of personalization, because what we can't do is link the usage to a particular user, because the user relationship is an issue between the operator and the user. So we can't see what a user at an operator has been doing and then use that for personalized recommendations on our own service. So we don't have that level of integration, but we do have generalized analytics to let us know how the various programs are performing on the operators' platforms.
And the other, I guess, is important, is one of these public service broadcaster things which all of you face, of having to reach as many people as possible. And if there is information out there which allows you to surface particular shows for particular audiences, young audiences seem to be forever the difficult ones for people and broadcasters to reach. It's useful if OTT can be used in a manner to get that information and present the right shows to the right market.
Yes, I agree. It's getting more and more important also for public broadcast, because when it comes to linear channels, we program them in a way that we have the popular stuff with the important stuff and use lead-in effects and so on. But in the new world, where we're playing on demand, we have to use algorithm to do that. The public service algorithm, as we call it, to actually do suggestions and recommendations of our content. What we did take a stand a couple of years ago that we will not allow third parties to integrate content from NRK other than the linear channels. So all the operators that we work together have our own application, Android application on their box. So we get all the data, and we also get the customer relations, because the users can log in and they're logged into our app, and we can actually then use that data to do recommendation and so on. And I think that was a very, very important decision for us to take when we did that we want to be the best provider of our own content on our own platform and have control over that data. But of course, it causes a lot of debates. As you said, when it's a public broadcaster, people will say that, your content should be everywhere. It should be a broad distribution, and all the operators say the same thing, that you're a public broadcaster. We should be able to also integrate your content. But we're standing pretty hard on that, and we see now that that is probably for us a good strategy moving further, because we have to use recommendations to be able to fulfill our goal as a public broadcaster, basically, in the future.
Yeah, RJ, what technologies are you working on developing and using right now to help the likes of Christian and Stuart and Bjarne able to use and work with these analytics and the metadata to be able to present their content in the way they want to?
But whatever we do, it'll never be enough for them. I think the apart from, of course, the analytics that's needed to give you the user behavior and the consumer behavior intelligence, there's a ton of them, and they're only getting better with time, and people need to be patient for them to be running a long time before they complain about how bad it is. I think analytics, like any technology, gets stable, better, and amazing with time. There's plenty of data, plenty of analytical systems. I think one of the things that we concentrate on is on the technology side of things, which is quality of experience, quality of services. People must remember that analytics goes beyond consumer behavior to see how happy they are with the basic sense of good quality TV, which no one should have a lack of broadcast-esque service quality in such streaming services and on the internet. Here, quality of experience, quality of services, there are tons of companies. There's Max Yabor. These are companies that are coming in with a lot of good data and analytical systems. What we do is we make sure that all of these analytical systems kind of work well together with the device, with the player of the device, with the technology used to build the user experience of that device. And all of those things need to kind of mix to make sure that you have analytics that actually make sense, easy to read, to use that data to actually make good sense for steering committees and stakeholders of such large services to actually better them. Because if you have all of the data in some data warehouse which is not used or legible enough to read and make sense of, there's no use of that data at all. So, and we help prioritize such kind of data presentation.
We spoke with Bjarne and Stuart and Christian about the issue of having to constantly update apps to keep up to date with the smart TV manufacturers. Is that an issue on your side as well, in terms of making sure that all the data continues to flow through without any particular interruption?
I think all the devices are only getting better with time.
Right.
We've done a quick analysis. Our porting of the 2021 devices for Samsung, LG, all of the smart TVs have never been easier. I think if you use the right technology, you learn when to deprecate the old things and focus on the new. I think that technology will be on your side and friendlier. I think
is that always the case, or one can imagine that there's the I guess is the difference between the technologists sometimes and the consumer. They'll think we can do this and this and this, and actually you just want to watch a bit of television set. And the same way the broadcasters, they just want their data.
You can do anything, as technology is only the means to the end. Don't ask for things that you can't get. But I think if people want something, we can spend the world and give you what you want. So I will say yes to every question.
Well, remember that, guys. Next time you're doing business with RJ, he will always say yes to what you might want to ask. I wonder, in terms of getting your content noticed, Stuart, on some the deal with Virgin, on Sky, there's one on the way, and there's a sort of an integration with Apple TV through Apple TV Plus, which is able to surface some of the shows from ITV, BBC. I think Channel 5 is in that one as well, Channel 4, to be able to push the content a little bit up. What other strategies are you using across platform, be it smart TV or OTT or wherever?
I think what's interesting about living in a kind of shared economy with an aggregator is that you see what others are doing in that space to get noticed as well. And we spoke before, didn't we, how prominence is something which is negotiated to a certain degree as well. But ultimately, to be disruptive on a platform where there's so many consistencies across the kind of content that you see, you need to find a way of standing out and appearing unique, which is kind of given a whole fresh emphasis and urgency to metadata and imagery. And you could have a great looking image, but without the metadata, you might not be able to associate what you're viewing. And if you take the opinion that a lot of these aggregation platforms are on a TV, that means that the person viewing the content could be sat 10 foot away from the screen. You've got to find a way of your content becoming apparent and clear. And we've relied quite heavily on ITV Presents rail, and so people can see the content. There's a lot of an association there with kind of the talent that we have, because they're very well known in the UK. But then you start trying to sort of push programs that the kind of, there's lots of talent out there in the UK now, lots of brilliant TV writing as well. And you can get programs that pop up from nowhere that become an overnight success, which becomes synonymous. The challenge really is to make sure that the programs that become synonymous, people realize are associated to ITV. And it's quite easy to forget without brand attribution that you are watching a program that is from our service and from our
I think I'm right in saying that this might not be applicable to all programs, simply because of the way that contracts are done with some of the independents. But if it's an ITV show, particularly an archived ITV show, chances are I'm going to find it on the ITV Hub. If I don't find it there, it might be on BritBox, which you have a share with the BBC. I think you're the dominant shareholder in the UK version. But slowly but surely, if I'm looking for ITV content on Netflix or Amazon or anywhere else, I'm not going to be finding it.
Well, this is it. And if you're a user now, I'm a brand new Samsung TV. For me, the way I navigate and find content, if I know what that content is called, is by using voice search. So if that voice search is referencing an aggregation backend and it's pulling the content up and playing the content, unless I've got a really good sting or the metadata is rich and the brand attribution is rich, I might not even ever know where I'm playing that content from, which isn't a problem for the consumer. It's a problem for the owner of that content to try and make sure we're building that awareness. So that's where we're trying to look at ways to be unique and distinguish ourselves.
Okay, right. Well, time is a bit against us. What I'm going to do, I'm going to whiz through everybody, because I want to sort of find out. It's a very short take on what's going to happen next. It is like a UK game show. So quickly, I need sort of like 20, 30-second answers from everybody. Bjorn, what's the next big thing?
What's the next big thing? It's just very hard to say. Things are moving so fast. I think we will see more on personalization when it comes to TV. I think also the rights owners and the broadcasters that produce will want to have their content on their platform to be able to talk to the customers directly. So I think we will see more directly from producers to customers. That will also be on the sports side, also in Europe, more of that. I think we can see that in the future.
Okay, RJ, what do you think? What's coming up next down the road?
If I have to predict to be heard, I'm going to say that the TVs will disappear, and holography will be the next big thing. just to be loud.
That's a twist on the end of the set-top box argument. Thank you very much, RJ. Christian, what's upcoming?
Well, we're looking very much at the move away from operators, that is, the users move away from operators and onto a more app-based usage, because aggregation actually is being disrupted at the moment. And we have a long and good partnership with the operators in Denmark to ensure us prominence on their services. But when we look at aggregation on smart devices, it becomes more a question of Apple and Google moving in to aggregate content. And we don't have the same historical close partnership with them as we do with the operators. So prominence for us on those platforms is a big concern for us that we are looking very much into how to solve that problem.
Yeah. Stuart, quickly, sort of 5 seconds almost. I think looking at the clock.
Sure, I'll kind of echo the point on personalization, and I think the relevance of that will become more and more apparent as we go through the next several years. I think data is going to be a huge driving force in how we consume content.
Thank you, Stuart. Needed more time for this one, but the honour, Stuart, Christian, and of course RJ. Thank you very much for joining us on this panel this afternoon. A good one up next. Monique van Disseldorp, looking at personalised content delivery experiences. But for me, thank you very much for staying with us.
Thank you.